of what Hafiz Umar read. Where did he disappear to? Hafiz Umar, where are you? There. So he read from the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, and you know, any good book, in any good textbook, the chapter describes and defines what it's about. Okay, so let's take physics, because that is this Professor Basil Altaie is a professor of physics, and so let's say physics book. How many people do physics in their secondary school? Hands up, or know what it's about? Ibrahim, which year are you in at school? Year 9. Okay, have you got a textbook on physics? You have, yeah, and in that, you don't? Well, what sort of school is that? Without textbooks, eh? Oh God! But you do. I'm sure you have, you have notes, And so let's say, you've got physics, and in physics there's a very big component of forces, eh? There's a chapter on forces. It will define what a force is. It will do a definition, tell you what a force is, okay, and different forms of forces, and the Quran is the best textbook for human guidance. It's a manual. So it's bound to begin with definition. So that is what it precisely does. Surah Al-Baqarah begins with amazing definition of what a muttaqi is. A muttaqi, say that? The pious, the mindful, the God-fearing, the God-conscious person. Who is he? Allah defines him, tells at least 5 of his amazing characteristics, and says, Ulaika humul muflihun. These are the successful people. Look, if you didn't understand what this pious and muttaqi is, then look at Inna alladhina kafaru sawa'un alayhim a anzartahum. The opposite of these are people who have a locked mind. Okay? The believer is one with open mind. He's willing to accept these truths and beliefs and all these. Here is the opposite of it, the close-minded. Well, if you didn't quite understand still what a muttaqi is, then listen. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَقُولُ آمَنَّ بِاللَّهِ. For 13 ayahs, it goes on and on, telling us what people with feeble faith are, people with doubts are, people who are uncertain, people who are sitting on the fence. They can't make a decision to be a believer or non-believer. Okay, what's their problems? People full of doubts, people who are deceivers, people who are mischievous, people who are this and that. Can you just imagine nearly 1.5 page defining the muttaqi? Okay, and then it goes on to say, well, you know where you come from? You come from Adam. Tells you the story of that. Then it tells us the history of another nation and so on. So that's what I've read today. Anyway, the idea of I wanted to show you is the book of Allah is very logical, rational, and since we live in an age of reason, that is the way we should be presenting it, inshallah al-aziz. And today we've got this amazing Professor Basil Altaie. Muhammad Basil Altaie. He's been teaching physics for more than 40 years at undergraduate and postgraduate levels in Yarmouk University and several others, and he's now the emeritus professor at the University of Leeds in theoretical physics department. And he's published more than 50 scientific papers which are peer reviewed. Okay, so that's a big accomplishment. And then more than 200 articles for public, for me and you, ordinary people. He's written on science and Quran and many other aspects of science as well. He's been teaching physics for more than, as I said, and his subject expertise is in quantum field theory. Okay, I don't know what that is. Then
14 books also.
Mashallah, 14 books. Mashallah,
books,
on
3 in English, 3 in English, and the rest.
Yeah, I've read one of them. Mashallah, I have your the divine word and
divine word and the grand design.
Amazing, divine. His expertise is quantum field theory. I don't have much understanding of what quantum physics is, and perhaps we can ask him this later on. But it is actually at the forefront. It is the frontier of physics, which, once we know more about it, will actually make huge difference to how our artificial intelligence works and everything. Computers work, won't it?
Correct.
It will be an amazing. He's also
an expert how your iPhone works.
Yes, history and philosophy of science, mashallah. His idea and development and taking the ilm al-qalam, which is one of the sciences that the Muslims, you can say, invented back, nearly 1200 years ago. He's now taken that to a new level using physics, which is really amazing. So he also delivers a course on astronomy for non-scientists, and inshallah I've been talking to him about delivering that through Crimea, so inshallah we're hoping to do that in November. 4 lectures on astronomy for all of us. I hope you'll be interested in that. Who would be interested in learning astronomy? Yes, it will help us to overcome this nonsense that we have amongst us, sadly. He's an amazing teacher, with a deep understanding and practices of pedagogical principles. And what I mean there is, he wants his students to actually understand, become critical thinkers, and to become good scientists, really. And so, I'm really delighted that we have Professor Muhammad Basil Altaie. Basil is the champion, and Altaie, of course, is a famous legendary figure in our Islamic traditions of the most generous. So he's the champion, and he's also this amazing, generous person who wants to give. And the best thing people like him can give is his science and his understandings of that. And mashallah, he's doing that through his writings and speeches. So Professor Basil, over to you for your lecture.
Thank you, Dr. Musharraf, and I would like to thank Karimia Institute for this invitation. I did my studies in Manchester University long time ago, and I obtained my PhD in 1978 in quantum cosmology and quantum field theory in curved space-time. That time, actually, I was reading the Quran. Not for ibadah. I was reading it for study. And in fact, something happened that made me more attracted to the Quran from the scientific point of view. Nowadays, we have a movement in Islam called I'jaz Ilmi. And I want to elaborate here a little bit on this. The I'jaz Ilmi is after the scientific science in the Quran. And my talk today, this evening to you, is about scientific science of the Quran. But I should make it clear that my approach in the giving explanation to the scientific science of the Quran is different from the I'jaz Ilmi. So I am not after the I'jaz Ilmi of the Quran. I am after a different approach and a different target, as far as I can see. The scientific science of the Quran are not to present I'jaz Ilmi. It is to present the proof that this Quran, this text, is from a divine source. It is not something that can be written by a human being. In my opinion, that's why it says Tilka ayatul kitab. Ayat means proofs, barahin. Ayat. In Arabic, barahin also. Tilka ayatul kitab. So whenever it marks something scientific, we Muslim need to verify that. Only through, not kusala. We should not be lazy. We should go after it through our specialization in science or geography or whatever, and explain it. Not to say it is I'jaz, as it is the usual, way of approaching the subject. They say Quran have said all. Quran is not a book of physics or astronomy or cosmology or chemistry or biology. The Quran is Kitabu Hidayah. هدى للناس. ألف لام ميم تلك آيات الكتاب. And the proof is in this ayat. The proof of what? The proof that it is from a divine source. That's why we should explain those areas. This proof does not come in one sentence or in one time. It comes as layers, unfolding during the centuries until the doomsday. So it unfolds for the people. That's why the Quran says, وَيَرَى الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ الَّذِي أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ مِنْ رَبِّكَ هُوَ الْحَقُّ. Those who are given knowledge, they see the Quran as a true word of God. And that's what I'm trying to do in my talk today. Let us look at the religious scriptures. What makes a religious scripture attractive? What kind of criteria we have? I actually looked through the references, and I found that the best reference, I found several references. One of the best is the Oxford Handbook of Religious Conversion, when it talks about how would a non-Muslim become Muslim. I'm sorry, I
just gone off the screen.
Please do it. Yeah.
Asr Jamaat will be at 7:30, so don't worry, just keep calm.
Yeah.
And then we'll continue the lecture.
Yeah, that's the full screen.
Yes.
We'll move here.
Inshallah.
Yeah. What makes anybody admires the Quran, whether he's Muslim or not Muslim? There are certain criteria. It is a personal attitude, correct? But as I said, there are certain criteria defined by some scholars. This include historical context, interpretation, moral and ethical teaching, logic and reasoning, spiritual and emotional attraction or impact, translation. And that's why the majestic Quran translation could be more influential than other translations. This is the important work done by Dr. Musharraf and his team. It's a great service for the Quran and for telling the right thing, the right translation. So translations and versions, and then the comparative studies also, it makes, yes, some criteria. I found that there are two most important, essential criteria for appreciating the value of any religious, I'm not saying the Quran only, any religious scriptures, and that is authenticity and consistency. And consistency, by the way, to tell you it is one of the most important items on judging a theory, a scientific theory. A scientific theory, if it is inconsistent, it can be proved wrong from inside, and that kills the theory. A scientific theory has to be consistent. A theory of physics or biology or chemistry, or also the Quran comes to conform with these two, by the way, the authenticity and consistency. But then we have to show, verify that it is consistent, verify that it is authentic, which means the source cannot be Muhammad himself. He went and wrote the Quran. We can't prove that. How? By chasing the verses related to scientific, to astrophysical phenomena, perhaps also biological, I don't know. My specialization allows me to chase those items, those verses which are related to astronomy and cosmology. And I found the wealth, great wealth in the Quran. This lecture is only a small portion, very small portion of. Second, we should also look at the scope of validity. Any book has to be read within the scope of what is claimed in that book. I mean, we cannot say this is right or wrong unless we see what's claimed. I mean, what's wrong or what's right in the other scriptures other than the Quran, I mean. And what's correct and what's not correct in the Quran. Now you can see on YouTube, for example, in Arabic especially, many YouTube creators, non-Muslim or Muslims, Christians, even Muslims, making some YouTube to convince the people that the Quran is contradictory, has been told by somebody who is Waraq ibn Nawfal, for example. One very famous YouTube creator invited me a few months ago to have an interview with him. And I know that will give me a big fame. But thank God, before having that interview, a few weeks before it, I saw a YouTube in which he's talking for more than half an hour, trying to convince the audience that Waraq ibn Nawfal taught Muhammad the Quran. I mean, it's something, of course, laughable. He brought reasons which are cannot be verified. It's only he has read with gold hair the Orientalists, some sentences pointing to Waraq ibn Nawfal. But does that means verification? It is not. Verification is well known. The way how to verify. Even as I said, I insist in science. I've been trained to be a scientist, not a faqih, not a sheikh, not imam. I am a scientist, but I can't do that. And the scope of validity would include that the following. As I said, we should read within the claims of the Quran and the claims of the Muslims. A divine word, it is a divine word, the Quran, revealed to Muhammad. That's what the Quran says. And it has been revealed, history tells us that it has been revealed 1400 years ago, or so. And it tells us, so that, I mean, this is important, the historical. So, otherwise, how can we say Muhammad doesn't know about the planets and the laws, Kepler law, etc.? If it is 200 years ago, then he knows. But if it is 1400 years ago, certainly he doesn't know about it. And not only Muhammad, all the people didn't know about the laws of planetary motions, for example. It is also it scribes from the knowledge of the divine. That's what Quran. أنزله بعلمه. أنزله بعلمه. That's what it says. علم Allah means. And contains signs of its own authenticity. Where I can find that? In the ويرى الذين أوتوا العلم الذي أنزل إليك من ربك الحق. Those who are given knowledge, they know that it is the truth. So we should chase the knowledge if we are men who are of knowledge. Once we are given the knowledge, we should chase those verifications. What are the verifications? Verses and sentences alluding to natural objects and phenomena. Day, night, sun, moon, etc. Been rivers, mountains has been. It's part of this text in the Quran. We should look at that. Many sentences of scientific value contained in the Quran can be discussed and interpreted in the context of our current scientific knowledge. But again, I stress the need to consider at least the above 4 contextual claims. Not, for example, assuming that everything in the Quran then is explainable. No. It's not everything explainable. Why? Because one item it says, one of the claims, that it is from the knowledge of God. And we don't know the knowledge of God. The other thing, it is science is developing. I mean, science has not reached the end. There will be discoveries in 2 years' time, 5 years' time, 50 years' time, 5,000 years' time, if we are living, I mean, the humanity, I mean. There will be new discoveries. And science is changing while the Quran is fixed as a text. This we should know. As a text is fixed, but as meaning is not fixed. It has several layers unfolding, as I said, during the time. Why it is as such? It is to prove that it is the divine source. It is from a divine source. So don't ask me that every ayah, every verse in the Quran I should explain. No. Sometimes there are ayahs which I say, Allahu bi muradihi a'lam. God knows. We have to wait. But thank God we are in an age, in a century, that we have immense amount of evidence on this line of thought. I mean, if you ask me about the same question about 500 years ago, I would be really puzzled with certain verses which I am going to explain freely and happily today. But if you ask me about 500 years ago, I would have been puzzled, really. I would be a poor guy then. Reason? Science. Science, and I will make a comment in the end about this. And that makes the difference between Ijaz Hilmi and my approach. I'll try to glimpse on a few examples of many others, as I said, which can be considered strong evidence of authentication that the Quran is from a divine source. I will take in all this lecture day and night, no more, only day and night. By the way, there are other examples. For example, the fate of the sun, development of the sun through its stage. This will take a 2 hours lecture, even. You will be surprised how accurate is the Quran description of the fate of the sun, development in its course. Not motion only, but in its development course, how it changes from this stable sun to a red giant to then becomes white dwarf and stable white dwarf. Not only just a stable white dwarf, etc. And that's another lecture, by the way, another talk. I will take the day and night in this lecture and say, in 2 successive verses in Surah Al-Qasas, the Quran tells us that say, O Muhammad, it means say, if Allah made night continuous for you, till the day of resurrection, who is a God who then can bring you light? قل أرأيتم إن جعل الله عليكم الليل سرمدا. Sarmadan means endless, continuous. إلى يوم القيامة من إله غير الله يأتيكم ليلة. Look, ليلة, the night time, continuous. Who will bring you light to see? Then in this next verse, directly, the next verse, قل أرأيتم إن جعل الله عليكم النهار سرمدا إلى يوم القيامة من إله غير الله يأتيكم بضياء. If Allah made the night continuous until the day of resurrection, who will bring you, nahar or light to see? Here we have two things. One, why we have two verses successively coming. The second, which is also very, very important, is it possible? Because Allah is challenging us. But is His challenge in the Quran, in these two verses, is verifiable, is correct? I asked my student, by the way, when I taught astronomy, I asked them this question. I bring these two ayahs and say, now tell me, is it possible? They say yes. How? Stop the earth rotating around its axis. I'm sorry, this will not work, because the earth is also rotating around the sun. And then he says, the student says, oh, professor, I'm sorry, we have to stop also the earth, prevent the earth from rotating around the sun. I said, but you cannot do that, because this means abolishing the laws of nature or the laws of gravity. Because once you have a body, a massive body, in a gravitational field, it has to move. No way. Or it will be another creation, خلقا آخر. This is something we don't know. We are living in a universe which is controlled by gravity. So you cannot tell me that, you cannot ask me to stop the sun, the earth rotating around the sun. Perhaps you can ask me to make the earth slowly, very, very slowly moving. Like Venus, for example. Planet Venus rotates in 247 days, Earth days. Very slow, correct, but it's also rotating around the sun in 225 days. That's why the daytime on Venus is very long day. It's 247 days of the earth. So you can multiply by 24 hours and know how many hours a day, the day of. Our day, thank God, is 24 hours. But in Venus, this beautiful planet which you see in the sky, very beautiful. Sometimes you see it, they call it morning star, because we see it in the eastern horizon, above the eastern horizon, and sometimes they call it appears after sunset in the western horizon, and we call it evening star, or the ancient were calling that. It's not a star actually, it is a planet. Anyway, I'm going back to this. So we have to verify. I'm sorry, your answer is wrong, my dear student. You have to find something else. The answer is, I cut it short. If Allah has made the time of revolution of the earth around its axis equal the time of revolution, and it shows it, around the sun, then as you see, when the earth is moving quarter around the sun, quarter revolution in its orbit around the sun, and this is also making quarter revolution around its axis, then the arrow will point to the sun, and this part will be day and will be day here. Continue the circle, day here, day here, day here, day here, there, eternal, continuous day. And the other part, sarmadan, without breaking the laws of nature or laws of astronomy or gravity or anything, without making miracles, by the way. Mind you, God does not, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, does not rule this universe with miracles. Allah rules the universe with laws. Well then, some people would say, do you mean that the laws can substitute the role of God? No. Because quantum mechanics tells us that the action of every law is indeterministic. Who is
Basil,
determined?
before you go any further, just explain that
Yeah.
slowing of the rotation of the Earth
Yes.
and matching that of its
Matching the
rotation.
period of rotation of the
Just
Earth,
explain that.
which is 24 hours,
Yes.
should come to become a year. 365 days, 0.24.
So it is a slow down to that level.
If it slows down to that level, it's possible. And it's good that God has gave us an example that such a slowing down can be achieved because it is Venus. Venus
is an example.
is an example. Somebody might say it's not possible. How? Well, how? Very easy. He makes collision between planets, as it happened with Venus, by the way. And not only, slows down. Reverse. Venus is rotating in a different direction. Yes. So if you say that the sun is appearing from the west horizon on Venus, yes, it is. It rotates
Clockwise.
anti-clockwise. Yeah, if you look from the North Pole, our role is anti-clockwise, and this is the Sunnah of Allah. That's why when you go to Kaaba, you rotate anti-clockwise. Furthermore, another gift for you. In physics, we have, it's not part of the lecture, the talk. In physics, we have قاعدة اليد اليمنى, the rule, the right hand rule. If your movement or rotation is in the direction of your fingers, right hand fingers, then your azm. What is azm?
Determination?
Yeah, determination is in the direction of your thumb.
Okay.
This is right hand rule. This is.
That's fine.
I think you could understand it. God makes our azm to Him, to the universe, not to the akhlada ila al-ard.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah.
If you rotate like that,
فإذا عزمت توكل على الله إن الله يحب المتوكلين.
that's right. So He has given us signs in physics, in our motion, in the planetary motion, because, mind you, we are part of the universe. Our creation has been part of the universe from the very beginning. From the very, very beginning. إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة. منها خلقناكم ومنها إيه؟ تارة أخرى. So, here we find in these two verses also another. Why two verses? Why Layl, Nahar? Once I asked my atheist friend, look, God says Layl, Nahar. In one verse, this points to the one half will be Layl, one half will be Nahar. One half will be night, one half will be. He said, Basil, this is not something that I will buy from you, because the Quran always tells Layl, Nahar. And then I say, I'll give you a verse where the Layl is mentioned, but not the Nahar. It will come. So the Quran here is consistent. and it is also a shade, by the way. The shade during the day get change in the length. The minimum length is at noon time, the exact Islamic noon, and it is the astronomical noon, when the sun is at the yes, the highest position. And this, wherever you are, is the shortest length of your shade. If you stand or you bring a stick, this is, by the way, in this time it points to exactly to geographical, and that's what we want to talk about in astronomy course. It will point to the exact north. And this has implications even about your, even in Islam, about the times of the Salah. It has implication, will be given later on. So let us go back to it says that God, the Creator, could have made the shade still. How? It's very strange how it would become still. If there is sun, there is earth, there is light, how it would become still? Again, one would say, well, it's by stopping the earth rotating around its axis, and then he will also need to stop it rotating around the sun and break the laws of nature and make a mess in the laws of nature and this universe, and which will not. But if you go back to what I said in the previous slide about what is called tidally locked orbit, this situation shown, if you have this situation, then your sun, the sun, will be in a fixed position in the sky. It will not move. You will have continuous day, continuous night on the other side of the globe. But from the continuous day, on a position, the surface, the hemisphere,
just to help.
Yeah, please.
What Professor Basil is here telling you is very simply how truthful the Quranic verse is.
Exactly,
right?
and how exact.
Says, oh, this can't happen. He's saying, no, of course it can, and this is the proof that it can. Therefore, what he's saying is, whatever the Quran says is truthful. Look, I'm giving you proof this is possible. Okay, that's what he's showing you.
As I said, yeah. If 500 years somebody comes and say, your Quran is wrong because it says God can stop can make the shade still, and this will never happen. This is never happen. I can only say by miracle. And he said, what kind of miracle? Then the whole universe is run by miracle. And Newton says it is not miracle. It says there is a laws of mechanics and gravity. So your Quran is not correct. But now we understand that the Quran is correct. The sun will be standing in a fixed position all the time, and that's what makes the shadow still. Yes.
Could you elaborate on verse وَكُلٌّ فِي فَلَكٍ يَسْبَحُونَ?
No, can we?
Yeah, this is another thing. We will. Yeah, this. I'm sorry. This is another subject, or could be explained, another context. So here we can see that actually God could have made us in such a situation where the day is eternal, the night on the other half of the globe is eternal or continuous, and the shade is still, no problem. It could have, but question: do we have such an example in our real universe now? Yes.
Can you just go back to the verse, please?
Yeah.
Please, just one thing.
This one?
Okay, yeah, that's from Surah
This is 25.
So Surah Al-Furqan, Surah Al-Furqan. Okay, fine. Jazakallah, thank you.
Yeah.
Good. Jazakallah.
Now, if I verify this, what does it mean? As I said, I repeat, if I was told this 500 years ago or challenged by, first, I cannot verify it. Second, I cannot stand the challenge of that person who is asking me. And then I would say, look, I believe in the Quran. That's what the utmost I can say. I believe in the Quran because there are other signs which proves to me that the Quran is correct. That's it. That's the maximum I can go. But I can't prove or verify or authenticate the Quran. Now I can authenticate and prove. That's why I say always, science can elevate, can raise can help us understand the Quran. Because the Quran started with the word Iqra. Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Iqra. This word came to people who rarely read. In whole Mecca, you couldn't have 2, 3, or 10 copies of books. Any book. Before Islam, I mean. In Mecca. And he comes, read. What should I read? I am not a reader. Read. And this read is for you, and for you, and for you. Now, in this age, you should read and learn and strive and struggle for knowledge, because you, the Muslims, are the best qualified to absorb science and belief. We have two things. Many other peoples who get Nobel Prize, etc., they have science, they have knowledge, technology, great. But we have also, in addition to that, we can have we have basically the Iman, the belief. That what makes me encourage all Muslims to, because they are basically qualified by becoming a Muslim, you are submitting or subscribing to investigate the nature, investigate the world. قل سيروا في الأرض فانظروا كيف بدأ الخلق. بدأ. This is very. God says, go around on the earth, in land, and see how God started the creation. It's not said to Darwin. It's said to the Muslims. But unfortunately, during the last centuries, 5 or 6 centuries, Muslims went lazy. They don't take adventure.
Can we stop here for Salatul Asr and then inshallah come back in 10 minutes? So,
actually, I have one ayah.
Okay, is that okay?
If we finish better, it would be finished.
And then we'll do the question answers after the Salah. Is that okay, everybody? Yeah. So don't run off. The real thing will come here.
Please, I take 10 minutes, Dr. Musharraf.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
Not more.
10 minutes, okay.
Not more.
No problem.
Plenty of time.
I told you a few minutes ago that one atheist friend or colleague actually in the Department of Mathematics, he said, you are exaggerating thing. You're saying that this figure or this ayah is telling me that it is a sign that the earth is round and it is rotating. But this is too much. Just because you have to layl nahar, your Quran is always, whenever it says layl, it says nahar. And I will challenge you. You all go and look. Every time it says layl, it says nahar. I said, well, I have one verse which says in the Quran, really, this is real. I told him, I have one verse in which it says, وَآيَةٌ لَهُمُ اللَّيْلُ night نَسْلَخُ مِنْهُ النَّهَارِ فَإِذَا هُمْ مُظْلِمُونَ. What would you expect coming after it, according to your principle, according to what you are telling? He laughed and he said, simple. وَآيَةٌ لَهُمُ النَّهَارُ نَسْلَخُ مِنْهُ اللَّيْلِ فَإِذَا هُمْ مُبْصِرُونَ. In the first verse, in the first actual verse in the Quran, it says, another sign for them is the night, from which we gradually peel, and we will go back to peel, the daytime or the daylight, the daylight away, and there they are in a pitch of darkness. Thanks to Dr. Musharraf, he used the word peel, not remove.
The translators.
Because I will talk about peel in a minute. But let's go back to my friend. I said, what would you expect? Obviously, he's not a Quran reader, Immediately he answered. He said, I'm dead sure that there is another verse, either coming here or in another surah. What is it? It says, another sign for them is the day from which we gradually peel the darkness, and there they are in a pitch, in glory of the day. I said, I'm sorry, my friend, there is no such a verse, not in the same surah, not in anywhere in the Quran. So you are wrong. Because you have based on your reasoning on the idea that the Quran is not from God. Now we come from why peel, astonishing. Naslahu, is the day which is naslahu minhu nahar. First of all, you should know that the prevailing situation in the universe is darkness. Second, you should know scientifically, the day is only 100 kilometers thick compared to 12,000 kilometers of the diameter of the Earth. The radius of the Earth is about 6,000 kilometers. And that is the atmosphere. What makes the day? What makes the day? It is the atmosphere which is scattering the photons, scattering light. And that's why in another surah it says, وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا. It is the day. It is the day. And what's the day? It is the scattering of light through the atmosphere. Or do you have an example where you have a planet or something where is no atmosphere? Yes, it is the moon. In the moon, on the moon, we don't have it nearly. We don't have atmosphere. Very, very thin atmosphere. And that's why you see the guy here, the astronaut, I can see clearly the part which is illuminated by the sun, but the part is not illuminated by the sun, can't see. You can't see. It's dark. Even the flag, by the way, you see the part which is in the folding, it is very dark. You can't even tell me where is the red line strip, the red strips disappeared. Nearly disappeared. Why? Because there is no scattering. If you are on the moon during daytime and sun is coming from here, you will see very clearly my face, but only half my face, or almost. But you can't see my ear. You can't see my ear if the sun is coming from here, if the light from the sun. because there is no scattering. So you can see what it means to have a daytime on earth, and why we have daytime, and why وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا, the glory of the sun is seen in the daytime. It doesn't mean that you can see this disk, solar disk. No, solar disk you see it from moon, from any other planet. But you can't see the sun as we see it on earth from the moon. Never. You will see it just a disk.
So here, Professor Basil, just one thing. Here, what you're trying to show is that the atmosphere is the skin.
Yeah, is the skin, exactly.
And the Quran, when it says
correct,
naslakhu, so that peeling of the skin. So you're saying that this is
because it is 0.03, 3 in 1,000, the ratio between the 100 kilometer and the 6,000. It's even less.
Yes.
1 over 6,000. 1 over 600. Sorry. This is the difference, the ratio. So it is like a skin. That's it. Also, for your information, that atmosphere is helping us not to freeze at night. Otherwise, the temperature of the earth will be -70. So it's like a blanket, actually. Blanket covering us. In the end, I would say that somebody may criticize and say, "Oh, Dr. Basil, all you talk to us here in this talk you're giving is known because you know the laws of physics, you know that the sun is such and such, and you know there is moon exploration, and you have this photo from the moon, correct? That's why you are strong enough." I say, yes, indeed. This is the goal of the Quran. Quran is not telling me theories of astronomy or theories of... It is the goal of the Quran to see these proofs, these evidences. سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. That's what it says in the Quran. It's also consolidated by the other ayah which says وَيَرَى الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ. Those who are given knowledge, as I said, see that the right thing and see that the Quran is truth. So I am not after proving to you that the Quran contains theories or he has advanced science or no. I am only trying to tell you that these things cannot be understood by somebody called Muhammad who lived 1400 years. Cannot be invented by him, cannot be described by him. He was receiving, قُلْ لَا أَعْلَمُ الْغَيْبِ, I don't know he was receiving revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and delivering it to the people. These verses and many others are explained in my book, The Divine Word and the Grand Design, which was published by Beacon Books, Beacon book, and I will always spell it wrong. And it is also on Amazon.com. It is on Amazon.com. You can order it, and it's a good book, really. I am proud of it because proud in what sense? In justified my iman, for example. Otherwise, I am very weak person who is learning every day, learning something. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair.
After us.
Jazakallah khair, Professor Muhammad Basil Altaie, for that really wonderful and I think a very insightful introduction to how those of us who know science can actually begin to see that the Quranic content is validated, verified by modern science.
And precise.
And it's accurate. And that's what, the way Professor Basil has presented it, is this: look, let's test what the Quran is saying
Exactly.
with what modern science is saying. And if it is, as modern science is telling us, now listen, some of us, certainly those who don't have an idea what science is, perhaps don't understand what I'm saying. When this is very sad, no? In 21st century, you should know science, okay? And anyway, if you don't, learn it. Learn some of the, but science is about testing truths about our world, okay? And what are those scientific truths? Well, there are lots of hypotheses, there are a lot of theories, there are lots of suppositions. No, we're not talking about those. No, we are talking about truths that have been established again and again, verified by thousands and thousands of scientists, tested, and we have proof of them. Okay, that's what we are talking about. And your textbooks normally have that, not always, but normally have that factual knowledge. That is a knowledge that, our deen tells us. In fact, in our Aqidah book, the first thing we say is, your mind and aql is a very good source of knowledge, okay? So that is where, that's why scientific knowledge is very valid, okay? And what Professor Basil has done is shown us, mashallah, the Quran's contents, if you look at them from scientific point of view, you can see, for example, this idea of the skin, and the Quran being so accurate about the peeling of the light, and as though it's talking about the skin. How would the Prophet ﷺ know that the atmosphere is like that, and it's 100 kilometers high?
Only 100, yeah, about 100 kilometers.
So these are, so inshallah, after the salah, I hope some of you will ask serious questions.
Yes.
Professor Dr. Asim as well. All right, you're a pharmacist and a scientist, of course, researcher, and others here, who've done science. Dr. Saeed as well. Ask serious questions about how we can use this further to establish our faith. And this is what it is. For me as a scientist, I, alhamdulillah, see these every day, these amazing miracles of the Quran. Evidence, and as Dr. Basil says, wa'aya is not just a sign and a symbol, but actually it is proof. It is the evidence, okay, of Allah's greatness and Allah's power. Once when I just finished my science degree, I said, goodness me, I wish I'd done philosophy. But it's only now that, alhamdulillah, I'm so grateful I didn't do philosophy. I would have been wandering and roaming in wilderness. Indeed. But science is so precise, and we can almost get haqqul yaqeen. We get ainul yaqeen and haqqul yaqeen, to be honest, as scientists, inshallah, when you read Allah's books, and that is where, inshallah, I hope we'll work with and we'll learn from this wonderful professor.
So I meant to say in the end that if somebody says this is only with hindsight that you are talking about, yes, it is with hindsight, because it's only unfolding.
Yes.
Thank you.
So inshallah.